I have always been infatuated with hospitals and the medical system and helping people. My younger brother had a heart condition when I was younger, and because of this, I was really determined to help make people better so that they didn't have to go through some of the same struggles that he had to. I knew then that I wanted to become a doctor, so at the ripe age of 16, I got a job as a medical assistant. It was honestly my dream job at the time, even though I was only doing things like feeding and bed changes and like monitoring people. But that time was so special to me because I really learned a lot about myself and other people that I may not have been exposed to on such an intimate level, especially not at that age. And during my time there, I found out that the things that you believe about the world and the things that you think you know about yourself tend to collide when you work in a setting like the hospital. As you can imagine, you run into so many different kinds of people who tend to bring their own perceptions and belief with them, and it challenges you because you probably weren't exposed to such a plethora of different people before. I will never forget the day that I saw this Amish family pull up in a horse and buggy. It actually broke my brain for a little while. And having conversations with them about their lives and how different it was from my own, just really, it was such an exciting time. I had a lot of fun. But one thing that I also remember is some of the more difficult days as well. There were definitely times where I went to work not necessarily in the best of moods, right? Because life still happens. I remember dealing with difficult or needy patients and how they really would kind of grind my gears at times. And I remember how I would show up in times where my patience was low, and it really wasn't that great when I look back on it. I see that time now and I understand what was happening back then because my understanding was different and it definitely affected the way that I helped people. Unknowingly, I had some biases that would pop up when I thought someone was probably being too needy or too difficult because I had such a limited medical and even life knowledge. It was hard for me to distinguish sometimes between who were good and bad people or good and bad patients. And there are times that I am sad to think that I may have shown up in these spaces with less empathy that I would have wanted, right? Because of said biases. The thing is about biases is that sometimes you don't even know that you have them, right? But it still shapes your perspective and behavior, and it affects the people that you ultimately say you want to help. I think that is why I really appreciated watching the new medical drama, The Pitt, because it was able to depict how dangerous these biases can be in the medical field and how easy it can be for them to show up when you are around different people. Oh, The Pitt, the type of show that you are. I just want you all to know that I am so obsessed with the show and how well it was able to tell stories and develop characters. I don't think that I have felt so passionate about a medical drama in such a long time. Maybe House. I think that was probably the last time that I honestly felt really locked into a medical show, especially when I was convinced that I was going to be a doctor. But House was more of a interpersonal drama, and though it used medical jargon and all that, it was really about the spectacle of it all, right? Trying to figure out these really hard cases. Think Sherlock Holmes, but doctor. And it was really great for its time. I did a rewatch not too long ago, and it really holds up, I think, at least in my book. But we're not here to talk about House, we're here to talk Pitt. For the uninitiated, The Pitt is a medical drama series that is set in an emergency department in Pittsburgh. It follows a group of doctors, new and old, who are doing their best to survive the chaos of the emergency room and everyday challenges that it brings. Naturally, when I first heard about this show, I thought to myself, how different can this medical drama be from other medical dramas? Because we have all seen the goats when it comes to this area of expertise. But I won't lie, The Pitt really stands out against others like itself within this genre. In other medical dramas, the focus is usually on one major medical problem or patient. We spend that time trying to get them to know them for that episode, and then we figure things out while the main characters are also kind of dealing with their own personal drama on the side. On the other hand, The Pitt depicts how their doctors' problems often overlap and are unrelenting due to the pressure of tending an emergency room, and you see within any hour of the show that they can treat anything from a minor scrap to, major trauma and sometimes even death. You feel like you're being plopped right in the center of the emergency room, and you feel the constant buzz of the events happening, it's infectious almost, leaving the show to rely less on long monologues and moments from their main characters, utilizing more of the atmosphere to kind of set the rules and the pace. You know that they have relationships with one another, but the show doesn't give you many moments to kind of breathe and talk like others probably have. It is addictingly fast paced, and there is an expectation that you will will pay attention to keep up. It throws you in and expects you to hold your head above water or God so help you, okay? Each episode of the season covers one single hour of a 15-hour emergency room shift, and you would not believe what these people go through in just 1 hour. I was so stressed out and racking my brain trying to figure out how these people are going to make it at to the end of the day. I have no idea. Some patients are in and out and others overlap throughout the hours, and I really just had to hold my breath sometimes trying to figure out which ones will make it back home safely. I wanted them all, but in real life and TV, that just doesn't happen for real. Because like real life, you never really know when someone's time is up, and it forces you to face that fact that there is really no rhyme or reason why some people make it and why some people don't. The Pitt is probably one of the most grounded medical dramas that I've seen in a while, and I appreciate it taking on a new approach to an old idea. But as I stated earlier, there is something that I appreciate even more than its approach to depicting the life of the emergency medical staff. The way the Pitt is able to invert assumptions about what you think you know about people and subtly guide you to understand what implicit bias is truly remarkable. Because of the fast-paced nature of the show, it's almost like you're a crab boiling in water. You really don't know what's happening until you're dead. It's too late. They've got you and there's no way out at this point. And they're able to do this by masking seemingly small actions or conversations amongst themselves, or even weaponizing characters that they've purposely made sure you don't initially like. Take Santos, for example. When I first watched the show, I had a real hard time connecting with this character. When we meet her, she is a fourth year med student, and so we know that she's a bit more experienced than some of the other newcomers that are starting also that day. When watching, your first hope is that she is going to make friends with all the other med students, but we quickly see that might not be possible because she is really jazzed about getting ahead, okay? She constantly tries to force herself in positions to operate on more complicated patients, and she is warned a few times that she needs to work on her humility and her bedside manner because it's bad. It's bad. She is brash and mean and overall inconsiderate of others, even when they express their discomfort, and that was really hard for me to swallow. So when she notices that something is wrong with another doctor, Langdon, I was quick to write her off because I didn't like her. I won't lie to you all. Langdon is our resident pretty boy doctor who is brazen himself, but clearly very smart, and he's also the best friend of, our protagonist, Dr. Robbie, who we find out is the chief attending physician during the shift. Robbie is a really relatable guy, and he really knows all of his doctor shit. So naturally, we trust and like Langdon because Robbie does. So when Santos makes the first few observations that Langdon might be tampering with patient meds, your gut reaction is to think, no, she has to be wrong, right? Not Langdon, right? Not the Langdon we know, maybe a different Langdon, but not that Langdon. And instead of paying attention to her ability as a good doctor or wondering if she was actually right about her assumptions, I wrote her off because I didn't like her. I wanted Langdon to be okay, and if that meant sacrificing Santo, then so be it. But that is why this show is so special, because it is screaming almost from the rooftops for us to notice how our implicit biases are clouding our judgment, shielding us from our empathy, the truth, and helping others, essentially. Now, for those of you who do not know what implicit bias is, I'm going to throw it up here, but essentially it is when you have an unconscious negative attitude towards people or associate stereotypes with their group. Very similar to regular bias, but this one is happening on an unconscious level. These are usually developed due to prior influences or imprints that happen throughout your life. So when you are watching a show like this one, your implicit bias are bound to show up and take center stage because that is what our subconscious does. In a perfect world, I'd like to think that this happens because our brain wants to keep us safe. But as my therapist likes to point out about anxiety, just because you feel or think something, it does not necessarily make it real. Yeah, I know. I pay her the big dollars. But all in all, this is a very normal thing that happens to all of us. And the show wants to call out these biases so that you are aware of them and force you to face them head on. They have used multiple characters to kind of walk you through what this might look like. So when you get to the bombshell that is Langdon's storyline, or almost anybody really, you are shocked but hopefully reflective. When I watch the show, I ask myself so many questions like, who are you giving your sympathy to and why? Who are you writing off or placing judgment on? Why does your dislike for someone like Santos discredit her allegations? And for me, it was because be honest, she was kind of a bully at first. I've had some not so great experiences with bullies in my own heyday, right? So that's all she was to me. But by the end of the season, we see that there are a lot more shades to her than we initially know about. Was she brash and at times needed correcting? She absolutely did. And these questions don't necessarily absolve her from that, but it slows you down from dismissing her completely, or anyone else for that matter. And even if you don't want to use someone like Santos because maybe her situation might be a little harder for people to dismantle, we could really take a look at Dr. Whitaker instead. He has had the day from absolute hell, but even he falls victim to his own biases after a while. After losing a patient, having blood sprayed on him, and literally being pissed on, my man wasn't wrong to be cautious about seeing that last particular patient again. It's also used as comedic relief because most people would be scared to be peed on again as well. But if we think about how he shows back up to talk to this patient, it is incredibly insensitive. He's covered head to toe in protective garb and is standing by the door, clearly uncomfortable and standoffish. When I was watching this episode, I wondered how this must have made the patient feel being treated this way. Whitaker himself doesn't really think that far because his experiences have led him here, and he's doing what he can to protect himself from any further harm. But this doesn't mean that he's not inflicting harm himself, as he makes assumptions about this patient, and it is only until the patient explains his condition does Whitaker show more compassion for him and correct his bias and offer real help. He takes off his coverings and sits down and treats this person with compassion and dignity. It is a gut punchy moment for the doctor, but also for the audience as well, because without thinking, you are on the doctor's side. I don't know about anybody else, but I wouldn't want someone to pee on me either. That is actually happening. It is traumatizing. And the day that he is having, I really can understand his plight. But we forget that this patient is also experiencing a very scary medical emergency, and he is unable to control himself in this state. And the show shows us how these biases can lead to writing someone off due to personal experience. And that, my friends, is how easy biases can pop up on you. When we first meet this patient, he is dirty, in dirty clothes, he's screaming, he's yelling, clearly peeing on people and out of control, right? Playing right into the fears and stereotypes about how most people view the homeless population, which is out of control, possibly on drugs, outcasts of society that truly need to be kept at an arm's length because of their inability to properly behave. Okay, whatever that means, right? But the show tricks you because what you may have initially thought about this man is wrong by highlighting his sobriety. The show does this to help the audience correct themselves and ultimately correct this previous bias that they might hold. This is not to vilify the doctors or even themselves, but to call attention to how easy it is to rely and act on stereotypes that we've created for people, and how dangerous and even deadly this could be for patients, and how this can lead to distrust of the medicine and medical professions alike. One of the things that this show does well is having a really diverse cast. It's probably one of the only shows that does this, really authentic job of trying to promote workplace diversity. I really love that the characters are able to speak to themselves or each other in their own language, or they're, you're able to see, both Javadi's kind of going at it, or most importantly for me, Dr. Collins in all of her glory as well. And to be honest, I feel like statistically this show has mostly got it right, because in the real world, due to a bunch of isms, the medical field is predominantly white and male. Did you know on average only 5% of Black Americans become doctors? And that number is even lower for other races and ethnicities, which is really tragic, right? Because that means 9 times out of 10, people that look like me don't have a doctor that looks like them. And that affects patient care, whether explicitly or implicitly. White students have more access and resources and support to become doctors, and that's why they make up 65% of the field so far. They are afforded help that many other races and ethnicities cannot due to economic status and racism and a plethora of other reasons. The system is not created for just anyone to pursue a career in this field, which is interesting when you decide to ask the question why, but maybe that's a different video for a different day. According to the AAMC, becoming a doctor can take up to 11 to 16 years. This time frame includes 4 years of undergraduate study, 4 years of medical school, 3 to 8 years of training in a specialty, and God knows what else after that. And for those of you who do not know, this does not really allow you the time to take on a full or even part-time job during all of this training. Becoming a doctor is extremely rigorous and takes up all of your time. So you either incur an insane amount of debt or you are truly SOL. And I want you to take a guess at what communities that would affect the most. Unfortunately, you would find that the answer is disproportionately everyone else that is not white. And it sucks to have to say this, but I do want to make it clear that that does not mean that white students do not face hardship or similar struggles, but due to privilege, this number is considerably less than other marginalized community. Okay? Great, moving on. History has shown us how biases affect everything from patient care to medical practices. In my community, most people know about the Tuskegee experiment where they denied treatment to unconsenting black men with syphilis from 1932 to 1972, or the misconception that black bodies experience more pain than their white counterparts, or that black women are 2.5 more likely to die at childbirth. Insane stats, leading many to distrust the medical community and their ability to help them. And this is due to there being too many barriers to allow more students of color to flood the hallways of hospitals. With a lack of diversity in the field, there is a decrease in opportunities that have led to a collective learning of communities outside of your own and gaining a better understanding of how to consider and help their patients. We see this in episode 2 when there is a black woman who is brought in and the first description that the EMTs use for this patient is drug seeking. Mind you, she is screaming and convulsing on the bed in pain, letting them know that she has sickle cell anemia. And it isn't until Dr. Mohan, another person of color, steps in and demands respect for this patient and her pain, and that her pain be acknowledged and treated with the care that she deserves. And unfortunately, it does not get better from here. Later in the episode, she checks in with the patient and lets her know that they are doing everything they can to help, and she can essentially press a button to release more meds if she needs them. But Dr. Whitaker takes it upon himself to add that it would only work once an hour, so she mustn't get ahead of herself, basically. And don't go thinking that you can have a good time, you know what I'm saying? And Dr. Mohan has to check him because his biases are showing, even though he was worried about the patient seeking drugs. Inherently, this isn't like a bad thing, right? Like, no one wants to have their patients seeking out drugs, especially if they are already abusing them. But the actors that are chosen to play these patients are not accidents. Black people are disproportionately affected by sickle cell anemia, which means that it may not have been on Whitaker's mind to remember exactly how badly this affects the body. But that is the point. He does not know. And when you think of a white male doctor treating a black patient, this comment in bedside treatment is hostile when you consider the implications of him insinuating what he is. Implicit bias runs rampant because most people are not closely exposed to the cultures that they feel negatively about. But closing this gap would decrease the amount of biases a person would hold and then act on, especially in the medical field. And can you just like imagine what the world would be like with less bias in it? Like, where would we be? Where would we be? Not only does the Pitt show what implicit bias looks like, but it offers us a template on like the different ways that we can be reflective, especially when called out. There's a scene where Dr. Collins, my personal fave, has to point out to another doctor that she may have been implicitly biased towards a patient. And to be honest, Dr. McKay really took that shit on the chin for real. Like, shout out to her because that is really hard to hear, right? That was a masterclass in taking this criticism because, like Dr. McKay, you may not have been aware that you are doing it. And though it's uncomfortable, it's not impossible, especially because Dr. McKay is shown to us to be a really caring person throughout the season. So we are taken aback just like she is because it was really easy to miss and overlook. These biases add complexity to these characters. That is what makes this show so good. I think most people who watch this show wouldn't think McKay was being intentionally harmful, that she was honest and had really good intentions. I'd like to assume that most people do not see themselves as people who could be biased towards other people on purpose. We generally believe that when you are a good person, you don't hold any ill will towards anyone else. But that does not mean that you cannot inflict harm on others unknowingly, because good does not equal unharmful, and they have real life consequences. Every doctor faces this fact, even our beloved Robbie. I could go on and on about so many more examples, but I fear at that point that I'd be holding you all hostage. So I'm going to keep going, but maybe if you all ask, I'll do another one. I'm going to try to land this plane. Let's see if I can do it. I know that this was a medical drama and it focused on how bias affects the medical workplace, but it was amazing to have this topic highlighted at all in the way that it was, because it helped normalize that even when you care about people, this implicitness still pops up and still has an effect effect on other people. It's not just for a moment, and it causes us to take a step back sometimes and consider how you treat the next person that you meet or talk to. My time in the hospital helped me grow a different understanding of people, and it helped me move with more empathy. And listen, by no means am I perfect, but it definitely helped move the needle, and I hope that this is what people take away from a show like this one. Because everybody can't work in a hospital to learn firsthand what this stuff looks like and how it affects people. So I appreciate the show taking a swing at it to try and what I believe is to make the world a better place. Season 1 has finished at this point, so if you haven't watched it, I hope I have convinced you to, because it is just so dynamic and it will really rip your heart out if you're really into that kind of stuff. But if you have seen it, please let me know what you thought about this video, or even what you just think about the show in the comments, because I just need your thoughts, okay? I can't stop thinking about this show. I go to bed thinking about it, I wake up thinking about it, I rewatch it, I think about it. If you like this video, please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe so you can keep up with my next one. All right, mwah.